Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of the Brewgooders on Comics Cast. You'll notice that there's no handsome gentleman to my left this week. That's because Colin, I forgot my best pal's name for a second there. I've called him Callum a few times. Colin is on holiday, which is absolutely amazing. And I've seen some of his beering pictures and I'm a bit jealous. So, it will just be me in the host role this week. But I'm really, really happy, as you can see below me, that this week we have an interview with James Lawrence, who we are big fans of on the podcast. I've met James once at a comic convention last year, and he's a solid dude. I know Colin's met him before as well, and actually I discovered James's work through Colin. Colin had gone to a comic convention and had seen a comic with a Mexican wrestling theme. So he purchased it knowing that it was something I would really, really like. I'm a big wrestling fan. So that was pretty much the start of a bit of a love affair with this series, the Legend of La Mariposa series. So I'm going to bring on James just now. James Lawrence is the illustrator and comic artist on the project, based in Manchester, which is in Englandshire. And I just press the button. Welcome on. Hi, James.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, not bad, man. Not bad. Happy to be on board.
That's nice. It's nice to have you on. As I was, we've had a wee chat before, obviously, but for those that are viewing, we I've been trying to get. I've been aiming to get James on for a long time. I was just a bit anxious to do so, and I'm kicking myself because he's actually, as I say, a total solid dude who's really nice to chat to. So how about you tell us a wee bit about yourself?
Sure. As you say, I'm a Manchester-based comic artist. I'm mainly known for the Legend of La Mariposa, which is a lucha libre fantasy comic series featuring the titular La Mariposa. She goes from place to place, helps people out, and has adventures. It's all about high action, high comedy, colorful hijinks.
I tell you, I did. I say I love it. The one I discovered, the first story I read, and regrettably should have done my dug it back out and read it again beforehand, was the one where La Mariposa goes to get the egg from the top of the egg. Just an absolutely phenomenal little story that I came away with totally loving. And then, as I say, I picked up the Demon Gauntlet as part of your Kickstarter last year, and it's such an amazing little piece of comic. I'm right in thinking that before you made the actual comic books, it was a web series.
Yeah, it still is. It updates whenever I have pages to put up. The webcomic serializes on a Tumblr at the moment, but I also share it across social media. I did have a proper website for a while, but that was just so fraught with the issues that I just kind of went back to social media for it. The general idea is that I want the comics to be available to anyone who can read them, even if they can't sort of put any money down, or if they can't afford shipping to their country. So and then once I have a complete story, we collect it, we stick it on Kickstarter, hopefully make it into a good looking book, which we did with the Demon Gauntlet, which is the first story. And currently I'm in the process of serializing the colorized versions of the various kind of short standalone stories that I did while I was drawing this webcomic.
I talked about this page. So this is one of my favorite pages in any comic I've ever read.
Oh, wow, thank you.
But actually, when I picked up the Demon Gauntlet, I spent quite a large portion of time explaining to Colin this particular page and how much I loved it. I'm just kind of running through it now. As you said before, your titular character, La Mariposa, she's a trainee luchador who is trying to find herself in the world. And as I say, the Demon Gauntlet deals with this her desire to join the Sons of Justice, who are kind of like a superhero lucha libre group.
Yeah, kind of a Justice League crossed with like the NWO.
It's amazing. Where does the idea come from? Because it's we talked a good 10 minutes before we went to air about our love for pro wrestling that we both share. But where did the whole concept of the comic come from?
Well, the thing is about like kind of pro wrestling in general, but Lucha Libre in particular, is that as well as being, you know, a very physical, athletic style of performance, it's replete with its own very interesting, quite unique mythology and folklore and rules and kind of unwritten laws and all this kind of stuff. There's a real mystique to it, particularly kind of in Lucha Libre, pertaining to the revealing of one's identity and the concept of, you know, masking in order to become like a symbol. You know, dynasties where this singular identity is handed down from person to person along a lineage, and you know stories like Frey Tormenta, who the film Nacho Libre was based on. So a priest who secretly wrestled by night to raise money for an orphanage. You know, it's just pure story fodder that is really fascinating to me because it kind of spills across all sorts of forms of entertainment. So, you know, it's not just pro wrestling, but I mean, you might not be aware of this, but in the 60s, what would happen in Mexico is that sort of the top Lucha Libre stars, you know, Santo in particular, but also figures like Blue Demon and Mil Mascaras and Tiniblas would, they would star in these films that were shot with like no budget, very, very quickly. And they would be very kind of like familiar to someone who, say, read Hellboy. Yeah. So it would be about Santo playing himself, but then fighting Dracula or the devil or Martians or a mummy, right? And it would be like, it wouldn't be how it is now, where like Dwayne Johnson, who we know as The Rock, we know he's an actor, you know, and he plays these different roles. It's Santo. It's if Dwayne Johnson was still in his Rock persona in every film he's ever played, any film he's ever acted in, right? And he was still that same character, and it was all sort of woven into the mythology of the Rock character. That's what the Santo films are like, and that idea captivates me. So what I did was I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could take this sort of idea and sort of these tropes of Lucha Libre and sort of weave them into the foundation of a fantasy world that I could then tell really fun all ages stories in. And that's what you get.
It is a really, I think that all ages aspect is also really, it is really, really important. It's certainly like as a father as well as a comic geek, like your series is one that like I have read and I have just given to my kids and been like, this is absolutely great. Like it's really, really good. Is that all ages aspect quite important to you in the?
I think so, because you know, comics are for everybody, and all my favorite kind of creators, like across virtually any sort of spectrum of entertainment, have always been able to appeal to the audience. So when I say all ages, in my mind, that means no overt sex and no overt gore, and everything else, you know, no profanity or anything like that. Although I myself have got a filthy mouth. If anyone who's ever followed me on Twitter knows, you know, though, you know, so long as I kind of keep those three things in check, everything else, as far as I'm concerned, is fair game. But yeah, ideally, I want, you know, the work to appeal to people who are my age, all the way down to sort of like just starting out learning how to read. And if I can do that, then, you know, that's mission accomplished for me.
Awesome. That's really cool. I think that is quite important. That is just good. It's interesting what you're saying, because as you were explaining that, there is kind of, I don't know, when I read it, that as well as like that all ages aspect, it's a really intelligent comic that deals with a lot of different themes. Obviously, there's spoilers for anyone that's sort of read it, but there is a part of the Demon Gauntlet plot that deals with sort of love and relationships and things like that. It was one of my favorite parts of the comic, and a bit that I found was really quite it wasn't what I was expecting to read when I was reading it. I was like, oh, we've moved into like a really interesting direction here, which doesn't shy away from a lot of different, cultural challenges and things like that. It was really, I thought really quite powerful.
I'm glad you think like that, because that was me going, oh my God, all of my fights are just fights. This is going to be really boring. I need to break it up, because I want a big fight for the last demon, and then I want a big kind of climax fight. But I can't just have like 5 chapters worth of fights. So I wanted to come up with a resolution to the fight that was maybe a little bit more meaningful, because I don't want La Mariposa to just be a blunt instrument who solves everything with violence. Sometimes I want her to be able to fall backwards into a solution just by sort of speaking from the heart in a way. And that was where that started from initially. It's like, oh God, this like third chapter, I can feel it getting stale. But then it kind of was able to resolve itself into something that people, seem to resonate with, which I'm pleased about. I was initially worried that people were going to be like, so this bat person is in love with an armadillo? That's disgusting, James. And I was like, no, it's not like that. It's a spirit thing.
Yeah, I don't think you had anything to worry about. I think it read quite beautifully, actually. Before we continue talking about the comic, as we're chatting, we're both swigging beer.
I thought, on a podcast called the Brewgooders, like it would be sacrilege to have my coffee.
Well, we are a beer and comics podcast. So the normal format of the podcast would be that we would have maybe Colin would bring 2 comics and 2 beers, and I would bring 2 comics and 2 beers, and we would just kind of chat and review all of them. What are you drinking just now, if you don't mind me asking?
I am drinking Manchester's own Shindigger.
Is that Mango and Chain?
You bet your ass.
We reviewed that a couple of maybe 4 or 5 episodes into our run.
I mean, Shindigger, like, I'm not going to go on too much about them because they're not paying me, but they've been a godsend during lockdown. They've been doing this delivery service where if you're within the big M60 ring road that kind of like surrounds, the Manchester and its like central suburbs, they'll do a beer delivery to you within 3 hours.
Oh, that's amazing.
And they drop a menu every 3 weeks. Like, so not every 3 weeks, like every week. And like, to be honest, they've been delivering to us like inside of like an hour or so. So it's just beer on demand.
That's quite amazing, because Shindigger is a brewery that I'm familiar with through the podcast. So they are quite niche up here. Are they quite a big deal down in Manchester? I
mean, anything local amongst kind of the beer fan community is going to have its following. But yeah, between Shindigger and ABC, they're pretty popular. You can generally find them in most sort of like, more sort of refined pubs. But like I say, I didn't drink them that much, but then I saw them, I really fancied a beer, and then, they popped up on my Instagram. I was just like, I'll give it a go. And then I was just really impressed.
No, there could be. We grabbed Mango and Chain solely because we decided we were looking for themes every week before we just decided to just grab beer that we like. We tried to keep things thematic, so like stuck to like percentages, or did purely stouts or purely IPAs or anything like that. And then one week we were starting to run out of themes, and then one week I was just like, let's do films, and so Mango and Chain was grabbed under that because it's a tremendous movie. So Django Unchained's a great movie. So
I got it. I just got it.
Oh, sorry.
No, I just got the reference. I thought it was just literally just they were just saying it had a shitload of mango in it.
And it does. It does, admittedly.
Cool.
Yeah, this is where I'm wrong, and Shindigger will get in touch and be like, "Yeah, it's because it's got shitloads of mango in it. It's got nothing to do with nothing to do with the film Django Unchained. It just happened to fall that way." So you when you were doing your comics, you have gone down the crowdfunding route.
Yeah,
Right?
I did for the first time late last year for the webcomic collection. Yeah, for the Demon Gauntlet.
How did you find that sort of crowdfunding process? Was it
good? Yeah, a lot of work, but massively rewarding. What it was my initial plan had just been to let the Demon Gauntlet just stay online as a thing, because I was a bit kind of like, well, people could already get it for free, and I don't know if I've got the kind of like following to, put together this big old graphic novel and everything like that. And then, I was just like, well, the worst that can happen, like, I want to put this book together. There's enough people who are asking about it. The worst that can happen is it doesn't fund and I feel bad for a bit. But when I, got everything together and launched, just all the readership came out of the woodwork,
yeah, totally.
which was awesome. Because like the thing is throughout the end of the story, I was kind of throwing my pages online, and I wasn't really hearing much back in terms of engagement.
Yeah,
so I was sharing the pages on Twitter, and they weren't really getting shared. I wasn't really. I was getting sort of the odd sort of dozen to a couple of dozens, loyal readers checking in with every page, which is great. And like I was kind of like, oh well, I don't know if this is conducive towards a crowdfunding campaign, but I knuckled up and I did it anyway, and everyone came through. People boosted it, they supported it, they backed it. Got a load of new readers in. It was a hugely rewarding and kind of what's the word? It was just a massively rewarding and validating experience.
I went through a similar thing earlier this year with a crowdfunder I ran. You do realise folk who's around. The internet's a funny place because the way we consume it, I think, it can be quite misleading. It can sometimes come across like no one's paying attention when they are, but they're just not engaging, and there's all these different weird things to think about. Certainly, that I know. I was one of the people that was picking up page by page, but when you announced the book, I fired straight in with a pledge as well. It's just it's amazing. It's an amazing project, and where I'm trying to go with this conversation, I should say, is I am on our Facebook as we're streaming. We have I have been getting some comments in, and I have a question from Alejandro Gomez, who I'll pop up on the screen.
Cool.
And we can chat through it if you want. I think the answer to this question would be more for me. If it would be about as a fan of the La Mariposa series, would be about how would be about your presence as a brand. I think the Legend of La Mariposa media platform is really, really strong, and I think and that's what you said about folk coming out of the woodwork is it was something that you have built a scene that people want to back, which sorry for those that are tuning in on our audio podcast. So Alejandro was asking us that he's self-publishing his own comic series. It has been for the last 5 years, and one setback from starting he's found from starting a crowdfunding campaign is trying to build a solid audience. He's doing his best to keep a social media presence, but he's asking what other tips or advice would we give in growing your platform and maintaining and building an audience.
So there's no sorry, say again. It is a big question. I'll do my best. Just solely speaking from my experience, one of the things I'm very pleased. One of the things that's great about comics and indie comics in particular is the strength of the community. If you engage with the community and support people within your community, they will turn around and support you back. So one of the things that I was able to do is I was able to, as I launched the campaign, I reached out to friends and I said, listen, campaign's launching. Would you be so kind as to just give it a signal boost? people who had larger or sort of, about equal audiences with me, people that I was friends with already who were only too happy to do so. In so many cases, beat me to the punch. It was really, for me, just about exploring every possible avenue for promotion that I could. So I did a post on Twitter every day, reminding people about the campaign. I did one on Instagram, like every day. Any social media platform that I had a presence on, that I had any kind of following on, I was constantly, just once a day. That's all you need. Maybe twice if you're feeling cheeky. Putting a thing up and just not just being like, hey, I'm crowdfunding this, support it if you can, and then a link. But, one day I would share the pinups that I was commissioning for the back of the book. One of the days I would share like one of the pull quotes off the back cover, so people could be like, oh, well, if this person endorses this work, maybe I should check it out. While I was doing that, I was like chasing up podcasters and comics websites to say, hey, I got this thing going on. Do you want to do an interview? Do you want to do a review? Here's a free PDF. Even if you don't want to do it, enjoy. I hope you like it. Even stuff like I got some flyers printed out with a QR code on the back of them for the campaign page. And I had a stack of those on my table when I went to comic conventions while the campaign was running, to like literally put into people's hands. Anyone who stopped by the table for more than 5 seconds got a flyer, which had the cover of the book on it and had like all the information on the back of it. I even did the old school thing of ringing around like loads of comic shops in the country and being like, hey, I've got this campaign going on. Is it okay if I send you some flyers to put out on your flyer table? If you do have such a thing, maybe you could put them up in your small press section. And some people were like, most of them were like, yeah, go for it. Yeah, send them on. One thing that's worth noting while you're running your campaign is that you'll have access to data that shows you where all your referrals are coming from. And you can see where your backers are being redirected from. So for me, it was mostly Twitter. Mostly Twitter, a huge chunk of Twitter. Very little from Instagram, but enough that it was still worth, it costs you nothing to post up, so why not? The problem with Instagram is it doesn't give you clickable links, which is, funnily enough, a barrier to people having to manually type in a link. But one thing I noticed is that ultimately 40% of my pledges came from Kickstarter itself. So people just on Kickstarter, because there's a community on there, who were just searching graphic novels, searching Lucha Libre, searching wrestling comics, and being like, oh, I've never heard of this guy before. Let's pledge and see what's going on. At the time I was doing it as well, they were also doing a graphic novel initiative, which probably helped. Although I can't be sure that it did, because I just kind of threw my name in the bucket and I didn't really hear anything back, but I don't know if I was featured on the site in that way. So it's really just like any possible avenue that you can think of, even if it's like, sticking posters up in your comic shop, every little bit helps.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's a really good answer to that question, man. Thank you so much for taking that time to do that.
My pleasure.
So what's next? What are you working on?
Currently, in the Legend of La Mariposa, I am working on the next Kickstarter, because I was really pleased with the results of Demon Gauntlet, and I want to try it again. Which is going to be it's called The Climb and Other Stories, which is going to be a little bit of anthology, which is mainly composed of full color versions of the black and white mini comics that were a mainstay at my convention table for a few years. In like really nice, really sort of like bright poppy color, as well as a collection of some of the shorter kind of strips that I did for various things. Like I did a Halloween one. I did a couple for a Jamie Smart's free Moose Kid anthology. Some I just did for fun, in there. And that's, the book itself is almost done. I'm just waiting on pinups. There's some great pinups I've got commissioned. from some, really, really, really great comic artists. I just cannot wait to show them off because they look fantastic.
Amazing.
And while I'm doing that, and I'll be honest, everything apart from the actual act of drawing comics, I find really tedious. So I've been procrastinating from finishing off the Kickstarter and sort of doing all the maths and calculations. There is a lot of maths involved, which I am not very good at. By working on the next La Mariposa stories that will follow, my pleasure, Alejandro, that will follow from The Climb and Other Stories, which is a never seen before La Mariposa adventure, which is titled Vulcan's Challenge, that I'm currently on page 35 of 50 of. So I'm hoping to get that done and ready to go by early 2021, if not late 2020.
That's exciting. So stuff quite soon then, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, that's the plan. With The Climb and Other Stories, I am hoping to launch in September, but that's not a firm promise because, everything, the pandemic, I'm just pointing out the window. Sorry, you can't really see, but just everything that's outside at the moment. The initial plan had been to launch early summer, so I'm a university tutor for my day job.
Oh, cool.
So I've got a little bit more downtime in the summer to sort of do the admin, because I did the Demon Gauntlet Kickstarter in September last year, which is when the school term kicks off. So I had the new term to deal with, as well as Kickstarter fulfillment and promotion to deal with, and that was a time.
I can imagine.
That was a time, and my plan had been to sort of do everything, do all the hard stuff in summer while things were quiet, and then things got too quiet, and it's kind of knocked everything back a bit.
Yeah, I can imagine. Cool. So if people like what they've been hearing, and I know many people will have, where can people go to follow you, check up on updates, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on Twitter at King Friday Joe. King is in the monarch, Friday is in the day, Joe is in the name. You can find me on Instagram at Jimmy Dean Sausages, all one word, which is a brand of hot dogs in the States, which I did not know when I took the handle because it's like a nickname. Yeah, so I get the odd message of oh, here's this amazing recipe that I came up with your hot dogs. I'm just like, that looks amazing, but I am not a brand ambassador. I post a fair amount of artwork on Instagram. Twitter is mostly me trying to be funny, and also posting artwork. And you can read The Legend of La Mariposa when it's updating at longlivelamariposa.tumblr.com.
Awesome. Oh, that's great, man. Thank you so much for joining me. That's been really awesome.
It's been my pleasure, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for responding to my Twitter message and all that jazz.
Absolutely. Anytime.
We'll hopefully get you back on as Kickstarter, season kicks off or whatever, and see how you're doing. Well, that's all right.
Yeah, people will not be able to get rid of me when the Kickstarter is going because I will be thirsty for it. So yeah, it'll be very hard to shut me up on. I'd love to come back on closer to that time.
That'd be amazing. I'll totally chase you up on that. Thank you so much. There you go. That's absolutely outstanding. Thank you so much, James, for coming on. That was really, really cool. So normally what we would do at sort of time is I would direct you to the other Brewgooders page to chat about beer and comics. But at the moment, because Colin's not there, we find that when one of us has to go solo with beer and comic reviews, it doesn't go as amazing as it could do. This is me signing off officially for the evening. If you want to keep following us, it's at the Brewgooders. If you want to follow James, please go and check him up at just one more time, longliveMariposa.tumblr.com and Twitter at King Friday Joe. And I will put the Instagram link on because I laughed. I was trying to type it when he was telling me, but I ended up laughing about his sausage recipe story. So, Yeah, please join us next week. Colin will be back, and we'll be leathering with through our beer comics, and hopefully try and get another interview for you. Just signing off some details on that. So yeah, thank you again for joining us, and I'll see you next week.